What's that like? What's going on, people? Hey, it's another episode of the What's That Like podcast, and I am your host, John Knowles. Hey, I want to thank you all. It's been a heck of a ride here on the What's That Like podcast. The listenership continues to grow. The audience continues to just expand into different areas of the region. I want to thank you all for that. And I think a lot of that has had to do with just the variety of the podcast. It's called What's That Like? It's not about one thing. It can be about everything. So I've had a lot of different variety here, just letting you get to know some of the things that happen here in the central Illinois area. The other thing I started doing, just kind of in the interim, I travel a lot for work, and I'm really not able to always just be here to crank out an episode every week. So what I started doing as part of my travels, I started doing these vidcasts, and it's pretty simple. I shoot them right with my phone. Usually I have a friend hold it or something. I did one of the videos at Antique Archaeology up there in LeClaire, Iowa. A friend of mine and I from work, we just happened to be passing through and decided we'd stop, and he mentioned, he goes, John, you do a podcast from here. And I'm like, I couldn't do a podcast, but I could do a video. So I had Bruce, my friend, hold the phone, and we started this thing off, and it worked out great. And then just last week, I would just happen to be working the annual Tour de Donut as a member of the Mount Olive Fire Department. And right before it started, kind of the local coordinator, Bill Vogt, came by the stop where we were directing people over to the donuts, where they could get some time knocked off for eating donuts. And I decided I'll interview Bill for a few minutes, and he was great. So I want to thank Bill for doing that. I'm not sure you even knew what you were getting into when you did it, buddy, but I want to thank you for doing that. And then I went and took some pictures of the riders. I went to the donut stop. I started interviewing folks from all over. I had one guy I interviewed from Singapore. I had a lady from Iowa. We had some firemen that were riding, a whole riding club from St. Louis, people I work with that I bumped into, people from here in the local area that were taking part. It's just a great little video, and I can't believe the number of views and shares that thing got. So I really want to thank all of you out there in the What's That Like podcast nation for grabbing onto that little bit of media that I put out there and really spreading the word for the podcast. It's been a huge boost to what we're doing here, and I'll probably continue to do vidcasts as time goes by. It seems like a good way to reach people. They won't be very long, kind of quick hits. What's going on? What's that like? Type of things. And we'll continue to do that. Next up, I want to give a shout out to the Gillespie Sting 14U baseball team. This team turns out it's going to be the final team I ever had a hand in coaching, I think. I'm probably retired at this point now. My son played on this team for the last 3 years. They welcomed him in with a broken arm, didn't even really get to try out. And then the two coaches, Bill Carter and especially Kent Frisco, kind of adopted us. We knew each other a little bit before that, but he basically took us in based on faith and what he knows of Adam as my son and the ball player he was. And we just formed a group. And this group was probably the best group of players, coaches, parents collectively that I've ever had the pleasure of being a part of. That's not a slight to anyone else that I've ever been with and coached with. It's just overall, everything comes together, and the attitude and kind of the love and respect we all had for each other. It certainly was a special group. And this this past weekend, it ended. The season was over, and we were all going to go our separate ways. There's no more baseball with that group. The league we were in doesn't offer anything above the 14U. So I really want to thank those guys and let me be a part of their lives for the last 3 years. And I want to give a shout out to all the players. They a lot of them listen to the show. So here you go. CJ, Adam, PK, Jake, Otts, Big G, Jack, Strut, a.k.a. Money, D. Lou, Big O, and Gilby, also known as Squints. So you 11 guys, I love you. I had the time of my life coaching with you, and I'll be watching out for you as you go on to bigger and better things into your high school career. So thanks a lot, guys. It's been a pleasure for me to do that. So there's your shout out. Next up this week, special guest, Bronson Painter. Bronson is the owner of a company called Metro East Firearms Training. Now, a friend of mine, listener of the show, Nick Pieri, he said, what would be good is if you had someone on to talk about the rules and regs of concealed carry here in Illinois. That's always a confusing thing. And I go, do you know anybody? He goes, well, I know a guy that teaches it, and his name's Bronson Painter. And lo and behold, I know Bronson Painter. I went to high school and grade school and things with Bronson Painter back in Staunton, Illinois, when we were kids. So turns out, as I reached out to Bronson had been listening to the show. So it was kind of a perfect marriage. Thank you, Nick, for bringing that up. And I think it's a good topic, too. And we're going to cover a lot of things about concealed carry in Illinois and what that means and how the classes work and what it's all about, the rules, the regs, the kind of the thought process you got to go to if that's something you're wanting to do. And then also, I want to bring this up right at the beginning. He'll repeat it further in the interview. But Bronson's making a special offer to the What's That Like Nation. So if we'll certainly have a post out on Facebook that promotes the show. And if you like that post or share that post, we'll combine the number of likes and shares together. And you can do both, and that'll enter you fine. But Bronson, he lost his father about a year ago, I guess. And yesterday would have been his 68th birthday on July 11th. So Bronson, for the 68th, to honor his 68th birthday, once we hit 68 combined likes and shares, we're going to take that pool of people and pick one person out. And that person, that listener, can win a class spot for free. So he'll be able to go into that class. That person will be able to go into that class and take his class for free. And if you don't want to do it as the winner, you can transfer it to something else. But I want to thank Bronson for doing that. That's certainly something that he offered. I didn't ask for, and he wanted to do that to promote his business, promote our show, and certainly to honor his father. So we want to thank him for doing that. Without further ado, I've talked long enough here in the intro. It's a long interview that we've got from Bronson, and he teaches the concealed carry class. He's a police officer of over 20 years. And I'm going to ask him, what's that like? Tell me about little Bronson Painter. What was little Bronson Painter like?
Little Bronson Painter was deathly terrified of talking in front of people, period. Kind of shy. I was kind of shy all through grade school, shy through most of my high school career, going through high school. Just a quiet person. Kind of kept to myself. Most of the teachers and students didn't even know I was there a lot of the time. Good family life.
Where'd you go to school? I know this, but our audience doesn't.
Went to grade school. I went to Zion Lutheran there in Staunton from kindergarten through 8th grade. And then Staunton High School. Did the Staunton High School thing for 4 years. Played a little basketball, played a lot of football.
Yeah. Where'd you go to? Did you go to college?
Didn't hit college till later in life. In fact, I'm actually still in college, making it kind of a career thing. But went to the police academy. That was the first college experience that I really had.
And what year was that?
Police academy was 1998.
Okay.
So it was 8 years after high school.
What'd you do in between?
I was a meat cutter.
Yeah?
I got hired at a grocery store in Livingston by Louis Ray. Went over and interviewed with Louis, had a little bit of background in grocery store, in the grocery industry, working at Bamey's and Holiday Shores in high school. Bob Bamey called me, goes, hey, if you want to be a meat cutter, Louis Ray in Livingston's looking for a meat cutter. You go over there and he'll teach you how to cut meat. So I went over there and interviewed with Louis. It was on Labor Day. Went over and met Louis. Louis said, you look like a nice young German kid. I think I'll give you a shot. So next thing I knew, I was stocking shelves. He started me out at everything. He taught me everything about the grocery industry.
Yeah.
And then when Louis retired, Jim took over and kind of dabbled. I always, from kindergarten, I knew I wanted to be a police officer.
Okay.
So it always was still in the back of my mind. And then an opportunity came up for me to work a little bit of part-time policing, and went through my 40-hour mandatory firearms training and actually started working. My first police job was in Williamson.
Okay.
Was working in Williamson. I did that for a few months, and then worked some warden, and then Staunton hired me part-time. And then Dave Gasper from Gasparoni's Italian store there. He was the mayor of Livingston, and he was talking to me one day and asked if I wanted to be the full-time police officer there. So Dave actually hired me to be the full-time officer. They sent me through the police academy and worked there for 2-3 years, and then moved over to Staunton, got hired at Staunton, worked at Staunton for 3 or 4 years. Was a detective there at Staunton for a couple of years, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then went to the Sheriff's Department, Macoupin County Sheriff's Department for about 7 years. Worked for Sheriff Wheeler up there. And during that time, I was a detective up there for 4 years. And then sometimes elections aren't the greatest things. and when you find out if you back the wrong guy, things just don't work out well for you. And I kind of seen things that were happening there. And so I decided to test a few places. I tested at SIU Edwardsville, tested at Glen Carbon, ended up number 1 on Glen Carbon's list. And I've been in Glen Carbon since 2008.
Okay.
In my 8th year, coming up on my 9th year at Glen Carbon.
And so you've been, if I'm doing my math correctly, 98 to 2000. You're almost up to 20 years as a police officer.
20 years full time.
Yeah.
And then the couple years before that, I started my first shift as a part timer was New Year's Eve of 1994.
Good day to start.
Great night to start. Wrote my first DUI on my first shift. And it was a doozy.
Yeah. Bronson, I mean, when I think about everything the cops go through today, I mean, I feel for you guys. I'll tell you, I have a degree in criminal justice. I've never used it. I got out of college. It's 1994. I have a degree in criminal justice. I wanted to be a state trooper. I'm testing everywhere. As you said, you went and tested everywhere I tested. We had all these Gulf War veterans coming back. And I don't disparage those guys, but they got an extra 5 points.
Yep.
My 98, their 98 became a 103, and I found myself just falling down these lists. And so I just never did it. I ended up taking a different path, and it's, taking a totally different turn. But I always say, the degree you get isn't always the path you're going to take in life. And obviously, you wanted to be a police officer. Yeah. You found your way there. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. You have to. The one thing that we had to do at that point in time during that period from 94 to 98 is just getting your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Getting your police academy, getting somebody to sponsor you, giving you that shot. And Dave Gasper gave me that shot, and I've been forever grateful. And he's passed on, but that was one thing that I always made sure, when Louis gave me a shot and when I needed a shot and gave me a job at the grocery store, Dave Gasper came along, he gave me a shot, and that's something that I've never forgotten. Those people that have given me those first little footholds, and I was fortunate enough to give a few people those footholds too in the positions that I was in. So it works out, it turns around.
So if there's a young person today that wants to be a police officer, what would you say to them?
You should think about being a fireman. Have you ever thought about being a fireman? No, law enforcement. This is what I tell my friends this. I tell my students in my concealed carry classes. I really do think I have the best profession in the world. I have the greatest job in the world. But there are times that it's not so great. There's. I believe you're still a volunteer fireman.
Yes.
And there's things that we see that we can't unsee.
No.
There's things that we smell that we can't unsmell.
You're right.
And there's feelings that we feel that we can't unfeel. And there's things that throughout my career I look back on and I just can't get them out of my head. So that's the stinky part of it.
Yeah, then, I know what you mean. I mean, you more than me, but there's many things I've got bottled up that you just don't bring out and discuss.
No, you talk about it when the time's right and you get through it, and there's friends that you can talk to but it's still, I'll give you an example. Today, I work today. I'm sitting at Walmart, and I see this little guy. He's walking with his mom and look like probably his grandma. And they're walking by me, and he's looking at the squad car, and I'm sitting there in the squad car, and I see that he's looking. So I jumped out of my squad car, and I always carry these junior badge stickers with me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, hey, you know what? I got out of the car. I said, hey, buddy. I said, you know what? I need some help today. I need another police officer in town to help me keep an eye on all the bad guys. I said, would you be a little officer for me today? And if you see anything, you make sure you call me. I took the badge off the little sticker thing and put it on his chest. And man, he just beamed up like
that's awesome.
And so, I mean, it's little things like that. That keep you going. That keep you going. And then it's always an underdog thing for me. I don't like people being taken advantage of. So that's the reward at the end of everything is when you work your butt off on a case where somebody's been victimized, and then you finally get to see it through all the way to the end where something finally works out. And all the stars align and the planets aligned and that person gets their day in court and there's a little bit of justice there for the person that was victimized. I mean, that's the rewards of a lot of the things.
That's awesome. Well, thank you
No, thank
for
you.
everyone for your service. Certainly you boys in blue got tremendous things on your plate today. Everything that happens is scrutinized, and I couldn't thank you more for what you guys do. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and all my listeners' heart, too.
No.
Thank you, Bronson.
We don't think nothing of it, really.
Yeah. Let's talk about concealed carry. You've got another business, and that business is called?
Metro East Firearms Training.
And you do a lot of the concealed carry training. So talk to me as I'm a total novice in this, is what is concealed carry? Why do we have concealed carry? Is this an Illinois thing? Kind of break down why you had to start this business.
Well, it was a business that I wasn't for sure that I wanted to get into, to be perfectly honest with you. But I love teaching things. I've taught things throughout most of my career in law enforcement. I taught DARE at Staunton for a few years, just lots of things like that. And so I wanted to get back into that. But I wasn't for sure exactly how the concealed carry was gonna fall out. So I put together things and started working on my curriculum and looking at different curriculums at other states and how things were. And then when Illinois finally put together their deal and they finally passed a concealed carry. Illinois was the last state to get on board with the concealed carry program, and it was very frustrating. For a lot of people that were able to carry in other states. A lot of people from Illinois would get out-of-state concealed carry licenses, but they would be able to carry in all the states except for their home state. Mm-hmm. And so being in law enforcement, like I said, I like to stick up for the little guy. And a lot of times, especially as a deputy, and not so much in Glen Carbon, because we have a lot of people in Glen Carbon, but we got the police coverage for it, for the most part. And with the county, though, sometimes I would be driving 20 minutes to go to some place to get to it. And that 20 minutes is a long time. And so concealed carry, what that does is it gives people the advantage and the opportunity, if they choose to protect themselves and have that sense of security to protect themselves and, more in their homes. They can always protect themselves in the homes with just their FOID card and things like that. But with the concealed carry now, they can be in their car. They can go just about anywhere and have that little sense of protection with them to be able to protect themselves. And more importantly, just to protect their families.
Okay, great overview.
Yeah.
Let's define some of that a little bit.
Sure.
What are the rules regarding concealed carry?
Concealed carry, you have to be 21 in order to apply for the concealed carry license.
Okay.
You can 10-year-olds take the class, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds take the class, so that way on their 21st birthday, they're ready to go. They can apply for the concealed carry. So the rules with that, there are certain places, mostly governmental places, that you can't take it. You can't take your firearm into the bar, which you never could take a firearm into the bar anyway. Mm-hmm. But with concealed carry, they're not going to allow that to take place anyway. But for the most part, there's a list. When we go through the prohibited places, there's a list of 23 places. But a lot of the places are the same. They're units of local government, like your library or your courthouses and different things like that. So when we say 23 places that you can't take it, a lot of times the students, they'll say, well, why don't you just tell us, where we can take it? That'd be less than where we can. And I always tell them, I said, because right now with your concealed carry license, you can walk down the middle of Main Street anywhere on the sidewalk, and you now have your gun where you couldn't do that before. And so there's lots of places that you can carry. But the rules, making the decision to conceal carry is such a serious decision as well, because it's going to change the way you look at some things now. This
was a question I had.
Yeah.
So when you talk about that, I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of what are the decision points I should be making to decide whether this is something I personally want to do or not?
One of the things that I go through at the beginning of class when I'm going through the rules and the different things is if you've had a lot of law enforcement contact in a negative way, concealed carry isn't going to help you with any of that. Yeah. I mean, if you can't keep your nose clean as a regular citizen, being able to get that concealed carry isn't going to help that out any better if you've had a lot of police contact. So, I mean, the gun, having the opportunity to have that gun with you is one of those things, and I tell every class this too. It's a class that I hope is a total waste of 16 hours of their life. And I say that because I hope that nobody that ever takes the class that gets the concealed carry license ever has to use it. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to change their life, whether it's fair that it changes their life or not. But it's going to change their life if they do have to use it because of the way the media sometimes looks at things and the scrutiny of the media.
Yeah.
And just having on your conscience of taking somebody else's life, that's a pretty strong thing to have to bear. Mm-hmm. And even though, hey, that person made the choice to do what they did, and now these are the consequences for the choices that they made.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a really tough decision. And I've had students take the class, sit through the entire 16 hours, and then after the class come up to me and say, I really have to think about this. I'm not for sure if I'm able to do this. Great class. I'm glad you went over all that stuff, but now I'm thinking I might not want to do this. I'm glad that they think that way, because you can't take the concealed carry class lightly.
Yeah.
The students that, I've trained close to 2,000 students at this point. Everybody that come through my door to take my class did not get a certificate. There are sometimes things that are said, something that happens that I don't want my name on that person's certificate. Mm-hmm. And so, unfortunately, it doesn't happen a lot. It's happened 6 or 8 times throughout the 3.5 years that I've been teaching. But I have to have that conversation and say, hey, I don't think this is for you. Okay. And so, I mean, that as an instructor, I feel that that's one of the biggest jobs that I have, is to make sure that the people that are carrying should be carrying.
So part of your job is to vet some of these folks. Is that
it
fair?
Should be. As an instructor, we should vet. I mean, if we have a student, I tell my classes too, we go through this list, why do people have guns? And some people have guns for sporting, they like the sport of it. They like to hunt, they like to, whether it's a constitutional right. Mm-hmm. And with constitutional right, if I tell my class, or protected family is one too, and constitutional right, and I tell the class right up front, if your only reason to be here is for the constitutional right, this might not be the class that you should take, because it's so much more. Concealed carry is so much more than just a constitutional right. And I believe in the Bill of Rights. The Constitution, I defend it every single day, whether people believe it or not. That's a big thing in law enforcement, is protecting people's rights. But just that alone, if you come in and you're gun this, gun that, gun this, gun that, gun this, and I don't believe that, and it kind of disrupts your class. I've had that happen, and I eliminate that, because nobody wants to hear that. Does
it concern you as a police officer to have armed citizens?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's one of those myths that a lot of the people that I tried to dispel, and I think it's the law enforcement instructors out there that can help teach. And I honestly, I wholeheartedly believe that it should have been a requirement that only police officers can teach the class. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I say that, and it's not, there's a lot of good instructors out there. One of them happens to be a really good friend of mine that's not a police officer, and I trust his judgment. And he does a great job at his classes. But we eat, sleep, and drink use of force every single day. Mm-hmm. I mean, just us in our uniform is a show of force. People are, they're intimidated by it sometimes. And we try to dispel that, but it is a show of force. And so we can explain use of force in a way that everybody can understand it, because basically our use of force as a police officer is the same as John Knowles has to meet. Mm-hmm. And you know that from your criminal justice studies and stuff. But, I make sure that the students take it seriously. I make sure that they know it's a decision that's going to impact their everyday life. You now putting a gun on your hip every single day is going to change your life, mm-hmm. because now you got to figure, okay, nobody knows I have it, but it's going to become complacent for them as well. And if it becomes too complacent, I want them to get used to it, but they should still remember that they have it.
What made you decide to take this step? We kind of hit on it, but what turned you?
Circle back.
Yeah.
What made me decide to do it is I took an NRA basic pistol class, and this was my turning point. I one of my buddies that we had talked about doing concealed carry, and he's shot guns all of his life, and he's not a police officer. He's just a guy that I met in high school that we become close all through the years. And I said, hey, there's an NRA class coming up, and I said, I'm not for sure, what Illinois is going to curtail, but I said, let's take this NRA instructor class, and so we went to Missouri, of all places, to take our basic pistol NRA instructor class, and we got there to that class, and we're sitting in the class, and there's about 6 people in it, not a very big class. Great instructor. We drive out to this place in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we come down and we get down through this little valley, and there's the driveway, and we get into the driveway, and we see these mobile home trailers that are all, boarded up, and we're like, oh, great. What decision did we make? Did we pick the right place? And so we're a little intimidated by that. But as we got there, we met a couple of the people. 2 people in that class, one in particular was a minister of a non-denominational church, and we met at one of the breaks and we started talking. He asked where we're from, and I said, well, I'm from, up around Edwardsville. He goes, oh, I know where Edwardsville is. And, he's got this deep Southern, he's like from Cape Girardeau. He's got this deep Southern draw, and he starts talking about, I was up in Edwardsville. I was up at the college, and that rock out there, I was out there preaching on the rock, talking about queers and homosexuals.
Oh, boy.
I'm like, you, sir, have no business teaching any of this stuff. So I kind of thank that guy for putting things in perspective, because his goal was to come over to Illinois. He had a buddy that lived in Southern Illinois, and he's going to come over and he's going to make $1 million. He's going to make a mint off of concealed carry. And I was like, you have no business up in front of anybody's classroom, especially as a pastor. Keep in mind, this guy's a pastor. And to make that statement to me, I mean, he doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know me from anybody. All he knows is I'm from Illinois. And so I wanted there to be good, legitimate instructors out there that were going to teach people what they needed to learn, how they needed to learn it, and stick with the principles of safety and stay within the law. And this guy, when you say you're going to do it for the money, to me, it's not about the money. I want to make sure that people feel safe.
You take it as a responsibility.
I take it as a responsibility. Yeah. And I tell my students this, and in every single class, and some of them that are probably going to be listening to this, they already know what I'm going to say. But in kind of a weird way, we become friends the rest of their lives, whether they like it or not, because we're permanently attached to each other. If any of my students ever get into a situation where they have to defend themselves and they use that gun, I'm going to be there with them the whole way. Yeah. And that's the way it should be, because when they go to court, whoever trained them is going to be going to court with them. Yeah. I tell them, I'll be there. I have your packet. I have everything. Any other trainings that you take through me, that packet's going to be there as well. And we will walk with you the whole way. I always tell them, I said, I should be about the third or fourth person that you call if something bad happens. Yeah. And some of them kind of give me that sideways look like, boy, that was kind of creepy, Bronson. But by that time when I say that in the class,
they get it. They
already know I'm kind of creepy anyway. Yeah. So I mean, it figures with that horribly dry sense of humor that us police officers tend to have. I mean, that just they're not for sure what to say, and that's usually in about the 14th or 15th hour. So they're somewhat numb. Yeah. From the law and stuff anyway. But no.
So what makes you a qualified instructor?
The curriculum has to meet the standards that were set forth by the Illinois State Police and the legislators of the state. To become a concealed carry instructor, you have to be an instructor of some sort, whether it's the NRA instructor, a police firearms instructor, an Illinois certified police firearms instructor. That's the minimum, and it doesn't have to be all. Okay. It could just be one. Mm-hmm. Police officers can teach it because they are sworn personnel that have gone through training and so forth. But the main ones are, I'm a Illinois certified police firearms instructor for my department. I'm an NRA certified instructor for basic pistol. So those are the things that the state wanted. As far as the curriculum, there's a checklist, and your curriculum, your lesson plans had to make sure that it covered the certain segments of that particular lesson plan. Mm-hmm. And it covers that. It goes above and beyond a little bit. And it works, and I get great feedback from my curriculum. People, I've had other students from other instructors talk to their friends that have taken my class, and they say, hey, we didn't talk about this in my class, and my buddy that took your class said that we talked about this. Is there any way I can come and sit in your class? And I say, yeah, sure. Come sit in my class. Well, what do I have to pay you? I'm like, it's up to you. If you come to my class and you felt that you learned something, pay me for it. If you don't think you learned anything, then don't pay me for it. Gotcha. And then at the end of the class too, I tell people, I said, hey, I'd get a lot of return students from word of mouth. If you thought that the class was great, go out and tell a friend about it. Have them come see me. If you thought my class stunk, then go tell people that it stinks, because I don't need to be doing classes. If I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, if people aren't learning what they feel that they need to be learning, tell them that I stink, and don't come take my class.
What do you enjoy the most about it?
I think it kind of goes back to the question that I was supposed to answer a few minutes ago. But what makes me certified to teach it, and why do I enjoy teaching it? Because the most important thing to me, John, just like almost any man that grew up in any family, I'd like to think, but the most important thing to me is my family. And there is nothing that is going to, in my mind, there's nothing that I'm ever going to let hurt anybody in my family. I will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that my family is safe and that they feel safe. Mm-hmm. And I think that bond that I get out there right at the beginning with my students, you know, those students that are sitting in my concealed carry classes, that's the exact same reason why they're there to take the class, because they want to be able to protect themselves and protect their families.
So let's talk about the logistics of the class.
Sure.
You said how long? 16 hours?
16 hours.
And what does it work? Like over a weekend?
It's over a weekend. We've done weekday classes before. We do most of the classes on weekends, Saturday, Sunday. Mm-hmm. The way I got my program set up is it's basically in 4-hour blocks.
Okay.
If you have a hunter safety class or one of the other 4-hour increments, you do 4 hours on the first day, the first 4 hours, and then you're off the rest of that day, and then you finish the full second day. Veterans get an 8-hour credit if they choose to. I've had a lot of veterans decide to take the whole 16 hours because they realize that maybe the military training that they had on a rifle isn't the same training that they would have with a handgun. So a lot of my veterans, not a whole bunch, but a lot of my veterans will, and it's usually my older veterans that will take the classes and take the whole 16 hours just to familiarize themselves with the nomenclature and the fundamentals of shooting again. That works out really well for them.
And is this a hands-on class? Is it a classroom and then you go to the range? What do you do?
The majority of it is classroom. We have a couple hours that we end up out on the range. The range is, we do some practice shooting, get them kind of honed in and work out any problems that they have. And then there's a 30-round qualification shoot that they have to shoot.
Okay. And where do you do these?
I do these classes in Godfrey.
Okay.
I have a classroom set up in Godfrey with the help of one of my buddies, Dave Valentine. Whenever he heard I was going to be teaching the classes, he called and he said, "Hey, you need a place to teach these at?" He goes, "I got the greatest classroom. It'll work out really well for you. Come over and look at it." And sure enough, I went over there and it was a great setup. And he's been a great partner in this whole thing and allowing me to teach at his business over there. It's a great classroom setup. I always get compliments on the classroom and how well it's organized and stuff. Then the shooting, we started shooting right behind the building, and it's in an industrial area. Dave had some people that he knew that we built a berm and everything. Well, there's a couple houses that was kind of a subdivision that was back around that industrial area. Mm-hmm. We started shooting back there and didn't work out so well. So we didn't want to upset them. So we ended up talking to an old retired police officer from Edwardsville. And he allowed us to use his private property. We set up a range out there and we've been shooting out there for pretty much the whole time. We were able to shoot about 3 or 4 classes when we first started there at the Safety Partners itself, and then we ended up moving out to the piece of property where it's not even a half mile from the classroom. Gotcha. So it works out really well.
How many people are in a class typically?
Anywhere. This last weekend we had a class of 10, which is usually on the smaller side. I love to have the classes that are about anywhere from 10 to 20. Uh-huh. The problem that I have with having more than 20 is I don't feel like I get to know anybody. I get to feel like I know maybe 10 or 15 of them.
I know what you mean.
And I don't want to certify somebody that I miss. You know, I want to make sure that I have a little bit of a conversation with every single person that comes to the class. So I get any more than 20, it makes it tougher. But they average 15 to 20 students is what we usually average. Summertime drops down just a little bit because people taking vacations and don't want to be tied up inside. Unless it's really, really hot. But for the most part, it's 15 to 20 students.
So how often are you running them?
We were doing them every other weekend.
Okay.
I was doing them.
That adds up for you.
It adds up.
Yeah.
And so come April, Andrea sat down with me and my wife sat down and she goes, "Hey, you don't need to do these every other weekend. Why don't you back off?" And she goes, "The kids want to get to know you again." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." So I do get days off during the week with a 12-hour schedule that I work at Glen Carbon, but every weekend that I was off, I was teaching a class. So starting in April, we went back to just a 1 weekend a month, and that's what I plan on doing. I allowed some flexibility in there. If I have a group that wants to have a private class, I do private classes as well, and we've done some fundraisers as well for people, where we take a portion of the proceeds and donate it back to whatever program they have.
So what do you charge if I wanted to sign up? What's it cost?
Well, if you signed up, it'd probably be double. But no, actually, our prices they're $129 for the 16-hour class. Now, if you're a police officer's wife or a fireman, spouse of a fireman, spouse of a police, well, I already said that, but if you're a spouse, anybody in like health care, nurses, doctors, PRNs, whoever, if you're associated with healthcare when you're helping the public, I give a discount too. So it ends up going down to, I give them a $10 discount. So it's $119. Teachers, I give teachers discounts. Some of the teachers that I don't want to say their names, we'll talk afterwards, but I've had some of the teachers that we grew up with.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, it was awesome being able to finally, for them to come back and trust me with giving them the knowledge to protect themselves was just amazing.
Something. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. 119 with that discount for nurses and firemen, 129 without the discount. And then it breaks down too. If you have 12 hours and you only need 12 hours of training, if you have 4 hours of certification from something else, the 12 hours of training, it goes down to $115, and your discounts would still apply depending on what you are. If you're a veteran, you only need the 8 hours. Then the normal 8-hour price is $89. If you're not a veteran, if you have 8 hours of that accumulative, which would be like an NRA class of some sort, that qualifies, or 2 concealed carries from another state. But the veterans, I dropped down even more. It's at $79.
You mentioned veterans. I'm on your Facebook page yesterday as I'm kind of putting together the promo for today's show as we're recording it. Tell me about the veteran you posted a picture of.
Oh man, he was something else. He ended up being the classroom favorite. He kind of came and took over on Sunday for me.
Yeah.
He was a World War II veteran, 93 years old. Signed up for the class, and I had several conversations with him. He wanted to know exactly where the building was, and he drove out there. Him and his daughter, I think it was his daughter, drove out to the building to find the building, and he come to class and just won over everybody's hearts in that class.
Yeah.
He would tell stories at the breaks and stuff like that. And the unfortunate thing, I didn't get to hear all the stories. I get to hear parts of them because I'm busy doing
teacher stuff.
Yeah. And so I had to hear some of the stories, and then talking to him on the breaks, he grew up in Staunton.
Really?
I had no idea of that. He grew up in Staunton. He knew all of the older folks that I did, like, George Moore cut my hair off through life growing up. We lived next to George and Junie Moore, for all those years. And he knew that he went to school with George, went to high school, and so, I mean, it was kind of like, we reminisced a little bit, and then, then I found out he's a pilot, and that's one of the things that I'm going to school for. Actually, I'm going to school to be a commercial pilot, and here he has flown over 20,000 hours, as a pilot, and it was amazing. I mean, this guy, and then we go out to shoot. I think this was the most amazing part, and if you read it on the Facebook page, you know what I'm going to say, but. We go out to shoot, and I'm standing next to him. I didn't realize that I needed to stand to him. I just gravitated towards him for whatever reason, And I'm standing next to him, and he brings the gun up with one hand, and I'm like, "Hey, sir, would you mind, just let's use 2 hands." And so he used 2 hands, didn't complain about it at all. So we get done. He shoots his target, and everything is inside. There's a red center that I use, and then there's another circle outside, which would be considered kind of the 10 ring. And then there's a 9 ring. All of his shots was in the red and in that 10 ring. There was not a single shot outside that red and that next ring, which was the best shooting that I have ever had a student shoot, period. So I'm putting together the certificates for the class, and I hear him talking to one of the ladies in the class, and he goes, "Yeah, I probably would have shot better, but he made me shoot with 2 hands." And I'm like, "Oh." Make me feel horrible, but no, it's the students like that, and John, I tell you what, man, there are so many great people. I mean, the classes for me, doing these classes have become somewhat therapeutic for not only myself, but even for my wife, Andrea, who's, she had to go out, she was hurt in the line of duty and can't be a police officer anymore. And so this comes, her being around those classes is somewhat therapeutic for her too.
Yeah.
And then what it really does for me inside my inner part is it restores my faith in humanity. There are so many, there's sometimes when I go to work and there's a week that I deal with nothing but just, turds, for lack of better,
I understand.
You see the negativity of things. And I get to the class, and sometimes you kind of think, oh man, I got a class this weekend, but then you get there and then you start meeting the people in your class, and it's like, man, there are some really cool people. I mean, I really do. Whenever I tell these my students and stuff that take my class, we're friends for life. I've gained so many new friends just through this business and meeting so many great people. I mean, it's amazing that it's, it's really been a positive part of my life.
That's great. I know exactly what you mean. The reason I'm probably not a cop today, because eventually my number did come up.
Yeah.
And what I learned is I did an internship at Springfield PD, Springfield, Illinois, as part of my education. And
that would have been a real good education up there.
And it was. And here's what I found out is everyone you deal with almost all day long is in a bad mood. They've either done something wrong or they've been wronged. And no matter what they've been wronged about, even if it's, the victim.
Did you leave the station to meet people, or is that just in the station by itself?
No, it was out.
Okay.
It was out and about. They got me around to all the different parts and all the different parts of the department. But, even if your bicycle got stolen, they want to know why you're not out there putting out the APB, so to speak, and finding this thing.
Right.
And then, of course, on the other end of the spectrum, you got the violent crime. And you're seeing all this, and you're just seeing the way some people live in this world. I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
When you get the student, this is one of my questions I was going to have for you. You're getting the law-abiding citizens coming in to see you. You're getting the quote-unquote good people, by and large, because they want to help out too, right?
Yeah. The way I look at those students in those classes is I kind of work all that into my class itself. I ask my students, hey, raise your hand if you really think you need to be here for 16 hours. And very few of them raise their hand, because they know what they need to do to be safe. But at the end of the first day, I always ask my students, did anybody not learn anything? And everybody's like, no, we had no idea that that's how that worked. And then by the end of the second day, the laws, I explain use of force in such a way, and it's sad to say sometimes, I've worked with guys in law enforcement that don't really fully grasp use of force, and I'm able to explain it to my students in a way that they understand it. When they walk out of that classroom, they know when they can shoot and when they can't shoot. They know what they can do and what they can't do, and they know what the civil issues are going to be that's going to circumvent their life and change their lives for the rest of their lives. And me being able to give them those tools to protect themselves physically and monetarily, that's just, it makes me feel good.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Bronson. So the 16 hours, what you said they were kind of broken into 4-hour blocks.
Right.
I mean, what are some of the things they're learning in these 4-hour blocks? I mean, are we talking about situational awareness, situations that they might find themselves in, common situations? Do you do a lot of kind of Q&A? What if this? What if that? What if I'm, what if I'm in the grocery store? What if I'm in the, the bank and somebody comes in to rob it? Are you talking about those types of things?
The unfortunate thing is that there's no time really to get into those. But the way that I teach it, when we're talking about a certain block, I'll get into that part and be able to give them a little bit of a taste of how to relate it to the particular section that we're talking to. For example, like the first day is basic fundamentals. Okay. Basic fundamentals. It's the nomenclature of the gun. What is your gun? How does your gun work? Is it double action? Is it single action? Is it traditional double action? Is it, do you have a semi-automatic? Do you have a revolver? Here's the parts of the semi-automatic. Here's the parts of the revolver. This is how it works. This is an X-ray screen of what's going on inside that gun, and putting that personal touch on it too. I'm a revolver guy. My backup gun's a revolver. And a lot of people want to know why that is. It's because when I pull the trigger and nothing happens, all I got to do is pull again. With a semi-automatic, it's a little bit more difficult than that. You got to figure out, okay, what happened? Tap, rack, re-engage, little things like that, where there's more things that you got to do. But in those blocks, I relate those situations, those examples of the situations that they're what ifing, what if this happens? What if, and we talk about that when it comes up, If it's a subject matter that I know that we're going to get into later, I say, hey, just write it down and we'll come back to it because I'm going to get to that point. But I take their questions as they go. The way that the curriculum is broke down, we talk about basic fundamentals, handguns, cleaning, the care of the gun. You have to go through the statutes, the law, the FOID card. There's a good hour of FOID card. There's about 2.5 to 3 hours of concealed carry itself. The second day, we try to get our shooting done the first day because we try to shoot the first day to get that out. So that way, if there is somebody that needs to shoot again, we have time to do it on Sunday because we're going to have a group that comes in on Sunday that has to shoot anyway. Our veterans shoot on Sunday. So we allow it kind of to break into that. The second day is mostly the law stuff because that's what the veterans need to have. And then we do some drills. we could do them on the range, but we do them there at the classroom. If it's a nice day, we go outside. If it's a bummer day, we kind of stay inside to do them. But they're drawing from a holster. How are you going to get to your gun? How are you going to pull it out? And we have a method of teaching them to where it's like clockwork for them. And we break it down, and they get a lot of practice, almost an hour of practice doing that.
Okay, so then it's over.
And it's over.
And then you sign off, you said. You got to sign their certificate.
Yeah, we print.
So then they get that certificate, and then what happens? They've passed the class, or they've taken the class,
They've taken the class, and they've passed it, and they can go to the State Police website, and they click on the Firearm Services Bureau tab up in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll pull up a FOID card button and a concealed carry button. And if they need to do something with their FOID, update the address or something, I always tell them to update the address on their FOID. And then they go to the concealed carry part, and a lot of the information rolls over from your FOID card and your driver's license to that screen there. And so they go through all that. They upload a copy of their certificate, whether it's by a picture or by a PDF file that they can upload it. They take a picture of themselves. They can take their own picture now. You remember back in the days with the FOID card where we had to have that little 2-inch by 2
you
and
have to
3/4.
go somewhere and get a picture taken.
Yeah, and you take it like 10,000 times and just to fit in that box. We don't have to do that anymore. With technology, all we got to do is we can take a selfie and take that.
Everybody knows how to do that.
Yeah.
If you don't, your kids do.
And then you go through a series of questions. At the end, you pay your money because the state, of course, they want their money for the concealed carry. And it's all done. About 90 days later.
They do a background check on you?
State Police does the background. You have the option to do fingerprints. Fingerprints are not mandatory. Some people come into the class thinking that they have to have their fingerprints taken. They don't have to have their fingerprints taken. The fingerprints can reduce the time of waiting to less than 90 days. But when I say less than 90 days, it's just short of 90 days is how it usually runs. If you go without the fingerprints, it takes between 90 and 100 days is what they're kicking the permits back out at.
All right. So somebody's got their concealed carry, and let's say I've been through it. I've got my concealed carry permit. I can now legally carry, but I'm looking for advice from you. Going, what should I carry? What would your recommendation be? How should I carry it? Holster? What type of holster? That type of thing? Do I want it? It's called concealed carry. If it's showing, is that a bad thing? Take me through some of this part.
Showing's a bad thing. You always want to make sure that gun's concealed. As far as, that's a big question I get all the time. Hey, what kind of gun should I get? And I kind of feel like sometimes I cop out at that question because of the simple fact that the gun that you get is the gun that you're going to carry. You carry you find something that's going to fit your hand, something that you're comfortable with carrying, and that's your concealed carry gun. Well, they say, well, what brand? There's a lot of good guns out there. There are so many good guns out there that you can't even name them all. Mm-hmm. So I tell them, look online, start looking at reviews. The great thing about the internet is you get 50 people that really like the gun. You get 50 people that hate the gun. Look and see if they come up with the reasons. And then once you find that gun that seems to fit your mold, go someplace and grab onto it, hold onto it. If there's a place that you can go and shoot it, you can go and shoot it. Test it out. Find the right price, because there's all different types of prices out there. There's guys that sell guns out of their house, the federal firearms guys that sell them, that have the federal firearms license, like Lukatich from Staunton and Gerald Brand over here in Litchfield. Those guys have their federal firearms license that they can sell guns that if they want to give them a call, they can give them a call. Or even Rural King, Farm and Home. People are always, they think, okay, I got to go to Cabela's and find it, or I got to go to Bass Pro. Well, there's people right around here that sell them that you can get a better price at. But I try to push people towards a 9mm just because it's cheap and then you're going to practice with it. And it doesn't, you don't have to mortgage the house to buy ammunition to practice with it.
So that's another question I got.
Yeah.
Okay. So, ammunition then. I mean, how much should you carry? Just what's held in the gun? If you're walking around with a couple extra clips, is that a good thing, bad thing?
Yeah, there's no limit on ammunition. Guns, you can only carry one on your person.
Okay.
If you're in your car, you can get by with carrying two on or about you, the way that I read the statute. But ammunition, it doesn't say anything about ammunition. So you carry as much as what you think. And I always tell there's nothing worse than needing more ammo and not having it. So make sure that you carry plenty. when we talk about personal protection in the home, we always talk about having a go bag and a safe room and stuff like that. So you always want to make sure you have extra ammo, and it's not a bad idea to have extra ammunition in your car if that's where you have it, or an extra clip, beside the one that you have in your gun.
Right.
It's always good to have extra.
You mentioned the holster, and you said showing is a bad thing. So what are the rules around that?
Showing's a bad thing, and you have to dress the part. You're not, John, if you come to my class, we're going to talk about that, because I know how you like to wear spandex, and just printing is a bad thing. They can see everything, and they're going to see exactly what kind of gun you got. But the thing is, you don't want to print either. You want to make sure.
You did know me in high school. That's why you say
exactly.
that. Yeah.
That's what brought that up. You want to make sure that it's covered. You don't want, the best thing about concealed carry is nobody knows you have it. Mm-hmm. When they talk to these prisoners and that's in prison, they hate the fact that it's a concealed carry state, that it's not an open carry. Open carry, anybody can get your gun. There's a point in time that you're not going to be able to protect that. As concealed carry, you don't know if the 84-year-old grandma that's pushing the cart, or sitting in the walker at strolling through Walmart at 1.5 miles an hour in a little electric car, you don't know if she's carrying, and so they don't know who to victimize, because they don't know. That's a good tactic that you want to have, is making that person guess whether you're concealed and carrying or not.
So, T-shirt and a pair of shorts, I'm probably not carrying, is what you're saying.
Possibly, but you're carrying. You can carry with a T-shirt and shorts.
Okay. So, is there a certain type of? Should I be? What type of holster should I be wearing if I'm going to do that?
And I go back to the same answer
something
there.
Up in the butt crack kind of a thing, or
people carry in the back. They carry in the appendix style, which is down front. They some people decide just to carry, if their gun allows them to, they can carry in their pocket. Mm-hmm. Holster is nice. Holster is going to keep that gun secure. But if you're comfortable just keeping that gun in your pocket or just in your belt, then that's what you're going to do too. But like I said, you kind of want to find a holster for it, just to make sure that it's in a secure place and that you're not going to drop it or lose it. If you're 100% for sure that you're not going to be able to drop it out of your pocket or anything like that, then carry it in your pocket. But whatever you feel comfortable with, and then you got to play that, and these are some of the things that we talk about in the class. Play that what if game. Play the what if game. What if, somebody comes up to me and wants they ask me for my wallet. Well, that'd be a nice time to maybe have the gun in the small of your back, so that we can say, okay, sir, here, hey, put your hands up in front of you and say, they'll let them know, hey, I got nothing. Let me get my wallet. And while you're reaching back to get your wallet, here's Mr. Handgun Guy, and that's a choice that you have to make. But it's playing those what if questions. Even when you're buying your holster, even when you're looking at your gun, you gotta have pretty much an idea of what you want. In our classes, we kind of cover all that stuff. We kind of go through that.
You're a police officer.
Yeah.
You pull me over.
Yes.
I should declare that when you pull me over, or should I not?
You don't have to. In Illinois leaves it up to the officer. If the officer asks you if you're carrying, if you got any firearms in your car, then yeah, you have to disclose it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, a police officer may not ask if you have a firearm. If a police officer asks you, hey, is there anything in the car that I need to be concerned about? Even though you're a licensed concealed carry license holder, that gun is something he should probably know about.
Yeah.
So if you ask it very general, then yeah, hey, sir, and he's going to know, because most likely your instructor is going to tell you to keep, like I tell my students, that keep your hands up on the steering wheel. And most likely when the officer walks up to the car, he's going to know that you might be a concealed carry license holder. Plus, most of the time we'll have the plate information, and a lot of times that information will already be on there. So we'll already know.
That's on the driver's license then.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's attached to the registration, if your driver's license information is attached to your license plates, then we're going to know usually before we walk up there. But the thing that I tell my students, and this is important, on a traffic stop, how nervous are you? When you're driving down the road, John, you're driving to your next meeting and you get pulled over, you're nervous.
Well, it depends if I'm doing something or not.
Exactly. And so if
I'm speeding and I know I was speeding, I'm not nervous.
Traffic stops are it's a very anxious moment for a police officer too.
Yeah.
So that's the most dangerous thing that we do on a daily basis is traffic stops. We got to worry about who's in the car, what's in the car, and not just the car itself that we're walking up to, but what about those
cars that are driving by?
The cars that are driving by.
Yeah.
And so it's an anxious moment for us. So we're focused on that car. And so if, I don't want people to yell at the car, hey, I got a gun, because that's going to make things a little bit worse. Don't tell them until they ask you. But if they ask in a way that you need to tell them, then you need to tell them. And then it's your prerogative too. If they walk up to the car and they don't ask you and you want to let them know, then you let them know.
Gotcha. Let's talk about liabilities and responsibilities. I take the class. I'm carrying. An incident happens, and I just decide I'm not going to take action. Is there a responsibility that I have?
No, U.S. citizens are probably in the best seat in the world. You have no duty to act. There's no duty. If you walk into a convenience store and you see that it's being held up and you're a concealed carry license holder and you decide to turn around and walk back out, that's your prerogative. You're not going to be held to any liability or any standard or anything like that.
Okay. Now, let me ask you the flip side of the question.
Sure.
I do act. And what are my liabilities? What are the things that are going to keep me out of trouble? What are some of the steps I should take mentally? As you said, the use of force, the decision to use it is the biggest thing I can do. What's the best advice you can give maybe people that have gone through your class, other classes, and maybe just somebody that's carrying a gun around that hasn't been through a class? I mean, right. That's just a good guy just trying to help somebody out.
Yeah. If you decide to take action, the main thing that you got to remember is that you are protecting someone's life. That if you wouldn't have taken action, they would have taken somebody else's life. They would have taken your life. Mm-hmm. If they put you in that position, then you're going to be justified in doing so. The thing that I tell my students is they don't want to guess what's happening unless they've seen the situation from beginning to end, or can put together what happened at the beginning but be 100% for sure. Then respond to it. If they don't know what happened, and they're not for sure how it got to a certain point, then they probably shouldn't react. Just make sure you protect yourself and protect the people that you have the duty to protect, which would be your family.
Yeah.
But the civil liabilities, I mean, if you kill anybody, whether you're justified or not, you're most likely going to be sued. And that's a tough thing to go through, because it's going to get some media attention, for a while, depending on the situation. Some of them are worse than others. But even if you do the right thing, you're going to get a little bit of media attention. The great thing about around here is our state's attorneys are on board with you.
Yeah.
If you dotted your I's and crossed your T's and did everything the way that we tell you to do, make sure that your life was in jeopardy or somebody else's life was in jeopardy, and you eliminated that threat for that person, you're going to be good on the criminal part of it. The civil liability is going to be, you should be fine. But it's still unfortunately going to cost some money.
Yeah. A lot of these questions I've been asking you, I didn't think of. I want to credit my friend, your friend too, Nick Pieri.
Yeah.
And I know we got another question here that someone sent in off the Facebook page. I think it's Bob Stanley. Is that right?
Bob Wheatley.
Bob Wheatley. He had a question about, where can you find information? So you've talked a lot about Illinois.
Yeah.
Where can he use it outside of Illinois, other states?
Yeah, one of the sites that I give people to, it's a very, very reputable site, is www.usacarry.com. Mm-hmm. And on that site, it's an interactive site. You can go to it, pulls up the carry conceal reciprocity maps. And it's important. I always tell my students, Illinois has no reciprocity with any other state. The only reason we can carry in other states is because those states recognize other concealed carry programs. And so if you have a state that has a concealed carry program, like Illinois does, those states don't name Illinois specifically, but because they do recognize other states' concealed carry programs, Illinois falls into that. So there's 26 other states that we can carry into besides Illinois.
But people in other states don't qualify for Illinois. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Illinois didn't play nice with others on that. So if you have an out-of-state concealed carry, the out-of-state concealed carry holder, the only time that they can have that loaded firearm with them concealed is while they're in the car. They can't get out onto private property or anything like that unless you've invited them to your property.
Gotcha.
You can do that.
What haven't I asked you? Maybe are there frequently asked questions that the students come up with?
There's always a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
What if I do this, or what if I do that? I think one of the biggest misnomers out there. Somebody's in your house and you go down and you see them, you can shoot them. And you want to hurry up and shoot them while they're in your house, because if you shoot them outside your house, you want to drag them back in and tell everybody that you shot them.
Okay.
Inside your house.
Heard this myth before.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, because we have instructors out there telling people that it's okay if you do that, and it's not okay. What has to happen is you have to perceive a threat from that person. The biggest part of being able to justify what you did and how you did it is to be able to tell that person how you felt at the time the incident occurred. You have to really dig down deep and tell, so that way the person that you're telling this to, which is most likely the police officer or the detective, exactly how you felt, what you saw, how you felt, why you did this, why you did that, why did you shoot, this person. You have to be able to perceive that threat. And if you can't perceive that threat, even though it's not right, and it doesn't, I'm with you 100%, even though a person inside your house in the middle of the night isn't supposed to be in your house, and yes, you would love to be able to shoot them and do all that, unless they've threatened you, you really can't shoot them. Mm-hmm. And
I think the most important thing everything you've told me today has led up to one answer, I think, Bronson, or one statement, I guess I'll make it and sum it up, is people that come to this class shouldn't be wanting to use it or wanting to have to use force.
Right.
They should be used for protection purposes.
Absolutely.
They shouldn't come into this situation thinking that now they're a police officer,
right? That
they're going to take law into their own hands just because.
Right.
And actually, they don't have to do anything if they don't want to. It's their choice.
Their choice.
So you're looking at law-abiding, cautious citizens that are taking this class. They're wanting to protect themselves and their families or those around them that are dear and close.
Right.
And just basically stand up in society and say, I'm not going to let somebody else dictate what happens to them.
That's right. The people that are taking concealed carry classes are good, standing citizens. They're people that already have void cards. They don't have any mental issues. They don't have any mental health issues. They don't have any criminal issues. So just because you're a concealed carry license holder, if somebody finds out you're a concealed carry license holder, then they know that you're not crazy, and they know that you haven't committed any felonies. And those people are good people. Unfortunately, with certain segments of the population, if you're a concealed carry, you're labeled in one way. And the way I label is you're an American. You're a U.S. citizen. You're somebody that people should look up to because you haven't made any mistakes and you lived your life in a good, clean, law-abiding way.
Yeah. What do you say to those folks that believe in gun control? Nobody should have guns. Why does anybody have that type of situation?
Well, guns are dangerous.
Yes.
And they just go off by themselves all the time. It takes somebody to pull that trigger. And I've had that conversation, but we tend to surround ourselves with people that think like us a lot of times. But there are sometimes those people that, you scroll through Facebook and you see the arguments on it. And my stance on it is you have your beliefs, and I respect those. And I tell my students this too. I said, there's two people out there. There's people that like guns and there's people that don't like guns. You all happen to be the people that like guns. We have to respect their beliefs, because when we do things that are careless, make little mistakes that make it look like, they're going to publicize those in the newspaper and on the media. If somebody leaves a gun someplace that shouldn't have left a gun, they're going to blow it up, and that's just the fact of the matter. So I respect those people that don't like guns, and I encourage my students to do the same thing. And the only thing I ask in return is for those people that don't like guns to respect our beliefs and our things too.
That's fair.
So I don't have any ill will towards anybody that doesn't like guns. There's a lot of people. I've had students that, I've had husbands drag their wives to class to make them take the class. And one of the first things that I try to do, especially when we're out on the range, I split them up, get her calmed down so that way she does well. And what ends up happening, unfortunately, is the woman will shoot better than the guy. And then that causes the big domestic at home later on in the night. But, I try to make everybody feel calm. I've had students in my class that were victims of crimes.
Okay.
And being able to give them that confidence back that they had before they were the victim is a good thing too.
Great.
Yeah.
Bronson, lots of heavy subjects we've talked about.
It's a lot of serious stuff.
But I think you've covered a lot of interesting points to this this subject that I don't think a lot of people know about. I didn't. And it was one of those things. This is one of these things that a listener, Nick, he goes, what would be really interesting is to get somebody on to talk about concealed carry. I go, absolutely. It's a great idea. What's it like to do this? What is the things that go through your head? And I want to thank you for coming on and talking about all this stuff. But
thanks for having me.
Can we transition to something a little bit more fun? Get a little bit to know Bronson, the person here?
Yeah, before we do that, though, I'm not for sure. I've kind of seen the numbers and stuff like that you've had. And what I like to do for your show, and since you've had me on as a guest and promoting my business and so forth, whether it's the 68th like that we get on this, or it's the 68th share, or whatever, you pick out whatever number 68 is. 68 special to me today because today's my dad's birthday. He would have been 68 today. He passed away last year. So we'll make the number 68. And just a shout out to Harry, Addie, Andrea, Emily, Devin, the kids. And hi, Mom. Got to get that in there too. But in remembrance of my dad's 68th birthday today, you pick whether it's the view, the like, the share, whatever it is, and I'll donate a class. Whoever is that person that you pick gets a free class from Metro East Firearms Training.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We won't make it the 68th anything because people will just wait and try to be 68.
Sure.
But when we get to number 68, and we'll probably make it the 68th like or something on the episode. Once we get to the 68th like or share or something like that, whatever those numbers, we'll pick one of those folks. Does that work for you?
Sounds perfect.
That way we'll just make it so whether you're the first or the 68th, you got an equal shot.
Yeah, there you go.
That makes sense. But thank you for that. That's great. So let's talk about something a little more fun. You and I have known each other since we were little kids.
Air John.
And that's how
Air
here
John.
we go.
Yeah.
Yes, that was my nickname back. You'd look at me today and you wouldn't think I was Air or anything because I probably couldn't get 6 inches off the ground.
We had our own basketball team. How can you say that?
Yeah.
We all had nicknames. We had Air John, and we had Sky and Brian, and then Brian called me Bronson Johnson. I mean, we had the nicknames, and we had more fun at lunchtime playing basketball than we did, unfortunately, playing organized basketball.
Yeah, that's probably true. You see, I couldn't afford real Air Jordans, so the way I got the name Air Johns is I had my Payless shoes, and I colored them with marker. And your coach was Don Schaefer, right?
Yeah.
And I went over to the Lutheran School gym and marked the whole damn floor up, and I felt bad about that ever since.
He was okay with it.
But Bronson, what was the first job you ever had?
First job I ever had. My first job was probably babysitting my sister, my younger sister. I was 9 years older than my younger sister, and mom and dad would take care of me a little bit at making sure she was okay.
Was that a rough job? Taking care of Robin?
I think it'd be rougher now than what it would have been then. She was pretty easygoing back then, pretty good kid. And then I babysat the neighbor kid, and then probably I mowed grass for my grandparents. But my first actual job was working at Mayfield's, like where somebody else actually paid me and taxes were taken out. I started working at Mayfield's when I was 15 years old. Which once again, loading produce trucks, sorting produce. Trimming produce, boxing it up and putting it away and stuff like that. And again, another great family in the community that I've learned so many things from.
What song are you embarrassed? Would you be embarrassed to tell people you could sing all the words to? Like if you're in the car and you're singing along by yourself.
Probably Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice.
Stop, collaborate, and listen.
Ice is back on brand new.
There you go.
Something grabs a hold of me tightly. Yeah.
That's good. I like that one. Here's a new one. You're the first one that's getting this question.
Uh-oh.
My wife came up with this, and we kind of came up with a variation of it. What's the one thing that you would go back and tell yourself as a 12-year-old kid?
I'd probably go back and tell myself as a 12-year-old kid that there is a girl out there for you, Bronson. and yes, you will have kids, and they probably came a little sooner than what you actually wanted them to do. Just cherish your family.
Yeah.
And that's something that I grew up with, and I knew that, and just pay attention to your family.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the favorite Christmas gift you ever got as a kid?
Favorite Christmas gift? I had a couple Christmas gifts that were pretty good. I got a guitar one time. That would be up there. I got my parents were cruel. At the point that I found out that Christmas wasn't what we all think at some point. And
good way to say it.
Yeah, and so money was tight when I was growing up, like a lot of kids growing up in Staunton. My parents weren't super rich, and so parents came to me and said, hey, Santa is, spending a lot of money, and Santa wants to spend a lot more money on your younger brother and sister, and you may not get as much as what the other ones might get. And so, don't be upset if you just get a couple pairs of socks and maybe a pair of jeans, the traditional old fashioned things like that. And so they after my brother and sister opened up their gifts one morning on Christmas, my mom sends me into the bedroom to get them a pair of socks So I go into the bedroom, and there on the bed is a stereo. That's the only thing that I wanted for Christmas is a stereo.
They tricked you.
They tricked me. So Bronson, being the quick-witted kid that I was back then, I went and got the socks. I come back out and hand him the socks and acted like nothing ever happened. And they're like, did you look on the bed? I'm like, yeah. Well, did you see anything? I'm like, not really. And so they made me go back in. Of course, I had to bust myself out. But so I kind of played a trick back on mom and dad. But
That's awesome.
That was good.
What was the first thing you played on? You remember the first like record or 8-track or cassette? You know?
Oh, man, that's going to tell a lot about us too, isn't it? My mom and dad had a bunch of old records back in the day. And probably, even to this day, I love listening to the Beach Boys. And so the first thing I played on my stereo was probably Little Deuce Coupe by the Beach Boys. And then, of course, you had to join that tape club. And I think one of the first tape
Columbia
clubs,
House.
You ready for this? Probably one of the first tapes that I bought that I listened to, cassette tapes. I'm not making my own mixtapes, but my own first tape that I bought was probably, you ready for this? Lionel Richie.
That's not bad.
Not bad, yeah.
That's not bad.
Our kids would say, "Who is Lionel Richie?" But
hello.
Hello, yeah. Or All Night Long or whatever.
Oh, Dancing on the Ceiling.
Dance on the Ceiling, yeah.
So, last question I got for you here.
Right.
What if there's a TV show out there? What TV show would Bronson Painter be a character on? Now, you're not replacing a character. You can't say like, "Oh, I want to be Kramer on Seinfeld."
Right.
Bronson's the character. What TV show would that be?
Oh, gosh. Love to be on my own episode of Cops. I love the part because sometimes as a police officer, you see all these cop shows and you see cops and you get to a point where you're doing your own narration after a call and there's nobody watching. It's just you in the car anyway. And so you're acting like you're talking to the camera and you're just doing your own narration. So I'd have to be, when I'm playing myself on the episode of Cops.
Okay. That's a good one.
The other one, I think it'd be interesting to see me as a character maybe on South Park.
Yeah.
I don't know what it'd be. I don't even know if it'd be one of the main. It could be just somebody that they're making fun of, but I think that'd be kind of interesting. Maybe even be. I don't want to be Officer Bar Brady or anything like that. And if Ashley, my niece, is listening to this, she's most likely going to say, "Well, you should be Paul Blart, the mall cop."
There you go.
And that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I permanently shaved my mustache just because I don't want to be Paul Blart.
And you got rid of the segue.
Got rid of the segue.
Bronson, I want to thank you. Certainly for coming on and coming over here to the illustrious Studio 312.
This is nice.
And I want to, again, first off, as a police officer, can't thank you enough for what you boys in blue do for us. Even as a fireman, we have a lot of respect for you guys.
We sure aggravate each other, but when it comes down at the end of the day, we love each other.
That's right. So I want to thank you. And then thank you for coming up and talking all about this stuff. I think you've answered a lot of questions that people might have about this. Yeah. If anyone wants to get a hold of you and take one of these classes, give us all the information they need to get in touch and sign up.
Yeah, a couple ways you can do it is you can go to my Facebook page and like me there. And
that's what? How do you find it?
If you search Metro East Firearms Training, you might come up with a couple places, but you'll find the right one. There's only one Metro East Firearms Training on Facebook. And so hit it up there. You can go to my Facebook page personally, Bronson Painter. Send me a message there. I always check my messages. I'm always checking the Facebook stuff. You can text me. My business card, I got a copy of the business card, how to get a hold of me. Text me, call me, 618-795-6028. I answer my phone at all hours. It doesn't make any difference. Even if you're just not for sure and you need to talk, that's not just talk about anything, but I'd probably listen to you then too. But yeah, anything, questions for how to get into the class, just text me, call me. Yeah, whatever you need to do.
Awesome. Bronson, thank you very much. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so there you have it. That's this week's show. Bronson Painter, can't thank you enough for coming on. You certainly gave us a lot of information about this topic. It's certainly a serious topic here in Illinois, and I think our folks learned a lot about it. If you want to know more, you can contact Bronson at Metro East Firearms Training. Just look that up on Facebook or look up Bronson Painter on Facebook, as he said, and reach out to him, and you can get a class scheduled. Want to thank my friend Nick Pieri again for setting us up together to do this. That was a big bonus as well. And then also, want to reiterate the contest that Bronson wanted to run. So when we post this on Facebook, there'll be a post promoting the show, and there'll be a specific post. It'll be noted there. If you like that post or share that post, you're going to get one round in the hat. Once I get 68, either likes or shares combined, we will take the pool of folks that are there, and that person is going to win a free class for concealed carry with Metro East Firearms Training. Now, if you want it, great. If you don't, you want to transfer that to something else, that's fine too. Don't let that stop you from liking or sharing the post. So once again, it's been a long episode. I want to get you back. Hopefully we're going to be back in about another 2 weeks or so. I've got another couple episodes lined up, and be looking for more vidcasts along the way. That's something I'll continue to do as well, because y'all seem to like it. With that being said, this has been the What's That Like podcast. I'm your host, John Knowles, and peace out. What's That Like is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Search for What's That Like. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Streaming is available at SoundCloud.com and on the SoundCloud app. Follow What's That Like at Facebook.com/What's That Like podcast. And on Twitter at What's That Like Pod. All opinions of the guests of the What's That Like podcast are their own, not necessarily the views of the host or the podcast producers. We hope you enjoy this podcast serving Central Illinois and beyond. Peace out!